Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Bench Mob ENT podcast, the best sports podcast in New Jersey. Today we have with us a special guest. Taya Reimer is in the building.
Hey.
For those that do not know who she is, four-time medalist with USA basketball, host of Taya Talk. She played in college with Notre Dame, Michigan State, and it's safe to say when DJ Khaled says all I do is win, we talking about her. She did a lot of winning in basketball, still playing basketball overseas, nothing but production over there. How are you doing today?
I'm good. That was a nice intro. Thank you. I'm good. You made me feel good to start the show.
No problem. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to hop on with us. For you, I just want to ask this question. It wasn't on the list of questions, and it was something that I was intrigued in. So your name, right? Your Instagram name.
Yeah.
By any chance. So I'll tell the people is Busta Rhymes. What is spelled Reimes.
Mm-hmm.
By any chance, are you a Busta Rhymes fan?
I am. I actually really am. It's so funny because one of my AAU teammates, I think it was like maybe my sophomore year of high school, like she was just so funny and she tried to do it for everybody on our team, everybody on our AAU team. She was like, let me make up a Instagram or a Twitter name for you. I think at that point Instagram wasn't even, it was maybe like a Twitter name. And yeah, she was like Busta Rhymes. And I was like, oh, okay, that's actually fire. And I've just always kept it. Like that's been my thing. And like people would be like, hey Busta. I just go with it.
Nah,
But yeah, I am a Busta Rhymes fan. For real.
that's
Actually.
no,
So
definitely super.
it
Because I
works.
saw it when I first saw it, I said, maybe it might be a coincidence. I'm gonna ask
It's a
though.
little of both. It's a little play on words, play on my last name, but I am a fan. So, and it's funny because also it doesn't really happen anymore, but like people used to mention me thinking that they were mentioning Buster Rhymes, and I'm like, I shouldn't be mentioning this. Like, I think this is not the right the right thing for me to be in, but okay.
Now with the conversation of music, because I went through and I watched the Taya Talks,
Hmm.
and correct me if I'm saying it your name correctly.
Yes, Taya.
Okay,
Yes.
I never want to butcher somebody's name. It happened to me
No.
before in between the
Yeah, and
show, and
people do that to me all the time.
they paused the show and was like, "Nah, you saying it wrong." So just want to
No,
make sure if I
you got
continue.
it. Yep,
Okay,
you got it.
all right. So within that, you mentioned part of the things that people can do to stay consistent to make sure that the play and
Mhm,
practice translates to the game is having
mhm.
routine and having music that you listen to before the
Yeah.
game, you listen to it before practice. For you, right? What
Mhm.
inspired that whole series that you've been doing of Taya Talks regarding mental health and how to be successful on and off the
Yeah.
court?
Yeah, well, you know what? I would say that I mean, I think now it's becoming something that people speak about, but you know, I think everybody deals with mental health and especially as an athlete, just your mentality is a huge part of playing and a huge part of your performance and you know, athletes are still people and things happen and you know, you can go through a lot of things but you're kind of expected to still be perfect and you know all of these things and I've definitely had times in my career where mental health was a huge thing for me and you know where I focused more on it where I let it slip and so I have especially in my pro career tried to do a really great job of focusing on that prioritizing that and I told you before we started the show that I'm dealing with an injury right now um, so I was just kind of sitting around like, you know, I have so much more time than I usually do. I'm usually in season. I'm like hyper focused on playing and I was like, what can I do right now to help kids? Like I've always wanted to, you know, help especially young girls. Like I feel like when I was a young girl there was stuff that I needed that I didn't have access to and, you know, kind of maybe changed the trajectory of things for me. So I was like, okay, I have all this extra time. Why wouldn't I start something? Not only talking about, it's really easy for people to talk about develop this skill and do this, but like let's talk about something real. Like let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about maybe you're struggling with your consistency. Let's talk about performance anxiety. Talk about the things that go on, in your head because I have always felt like that has been way more of something that I've had
Yes,
to work on than the skill, the physical, all of that. So I just feel like the younger that girls and boys, the younger that players um, just think about that and focus on that and can pinpoint certain things and just work on it and figure out what works for them to eliminate that, then the better you're going to be forever, as long as you play.
that's completely true right there because I think even from watching it, I know you said it's geared towards young girls and young boys, but I know it's some collegiate players right
Yeah.
now. I know it's some pro
Yeah.
players right now that
Yes.
definitely could be watching this, could be taking it more serious because I think it's
Yeah.
something that should be factored in when we hear sports commentators and analysts kind of talk about the downs of players and don't think
Yes.
that maybe it's something on the mental side that's going on with them. Like,
Exactly. That's always been, and actually when I was in college, I always wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And just wanted to be on ESPN, wanted to be a talking head. And um that's kind of part of what I'm doing because I have this background and I studied journalism and broadcast, and I love to do that. But like you said, there's a lot of times that athletes are not looked at as people, and they might have a bad game, they might have a bad season, and it's like, well, what's wrong with them? Like you're this, you're that, you're not doing what. And it's like, what about the stories behind that? What about the things that are going on that maybe make them have these lows, but then how do they get back to it and they have these highs? Like athletes have incredible stories and the things that they have to push through and the things that they have to go through and still perform. I mean, it's incredible. So, you're exactly right. I mean, that's part of what I want to help. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's been tailored, and I've tried to kind of make the Taya Talk something that young people can understand. But it's definitely, I mean, there's some things that I talk about. I'm like, yeah, like I'm 29 and I'm like, I'm doing this, and it works for me and it helps me. So I think it's something for everybody. And the mental side of the game and your mental health it's relevant at any age.
1,000% because I'm watching some of the stuff. I'm like, if I had some of this information, we might be in a different
I know.
situation. I might be overseas with you. Like, it might be different
I know.
because
I
it wasn't.
know.
It wasn't actually. I like to say it's not really in the sports realm. It hasn't really been talked about seriously. Probably what in the last
Yeah.
maybe decade, 15 years.
Yeah, it's been really taboo up until a few years ago, honestly.
Yeah,
Um,
so I think that's you tailing it to them, but I think a lot of people could, gain value from it and just understanding and making it their own of what they need to figure out. And like
yeah.
for you, you kind of alluded to it, but for you specifically, how
Mhm.
has mental health, helped in your career to maintain it? And how has it possibly, like you said, sometimes you didn't take it as serious. How did it maybe affect your career in a negative sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, just being younger, um, like I said, it was kind of something that was always taboo. And, as athletes, you're kind of always taught like push through this, push through that, like, don't be soft. And so I think that there are definitely times where I felt like I was struggling and, couldn't necessarily wrap my mind around like, why am I inconsistently performing? Why am I, super anxious before games? Why am I like some days motivated, some days I'm not motivated, and didn't really understand it, but couldn't really, didn't have a resource to didn't really have a resource to ask for help, and just didn't really like feel comfortable asking for
Mhm.
help. Um and honestly, I do feel like there were times in my career where that, was pivotal and probably put me on a different trajectory than um where I thought that I was going or where I wanted to go. So I think that now as a professional, um that's like a huge focus for me. Just how can I feel good about me? How can I feel good about my performance? How can I get to a place where I feel like mentally consistent no matter what? So I know when I go into a game, maybe I have a bad shooting night. Maybe I, don't play great, but that was something physical. That wasn't because I was,
Mhm.
anxious or messed up in the head, couldn't focus, couldn't, whatever. So I think that's huge. It's been a huge thing for me. And I've had to, try a bunch of different things. I've had to experiment with a bunch of different things, um, just to get to something that made me feel right. Because, the other thing is everybody's different. Like, even with Taya Talk, like I can sit and tell you like what works for me, but that doesn't mean that,
Mhm.
you know, the 7 billion people in the world, it works for them. Like you just have to try things. And um yeah, and I think that once I finally like was open with that and could ask for help, and then also just admit to myself like you're struggling with pressure, you're struggling with performance anxiety, you're struggling to be consistent, you're just struggling, like then I could start to, move in the right direction. So
I think that's great too. Like the point that you pointed out right there of saying you had to have that honest conversation with yourself and being able to
yes.
say, like, hey, this is, I'm struggling here, I'm struggling in this area. And then being able to try to figure out what to do exactly to fix that situation. And I've had on players that's been overseas, I've
Mhm.
had on professionals overseas for you in the conversation of mental health because I have this conversation often with people that play overseas that's
Mhm.
coming from the States. How do you maintain your mental health? Is it easier being overseas versus being at home? Because I hear different opinions like, hey,
Yeah.
I get to be away from distractions. Some say, I want to be by my family. For you, how has you
Yeah.
been able to maintain your mental health overseas?
Um, you know what? For me, I would say it really depends. I would say overall, I think that it's harder. I mean, I'm super close with my family. I'm super close with my mom, so it's always really hard for me to, go overseas and be away from my mom. But there have also been seasons where, I've been like in a really small village in the middle of nowhere and I have like no outlet, no, nothing to do. Um, and so that makes it like super hard. And those are the times when you really have to like hyper focus on it and okay, what little things can I do just to improve myself as a person, like, reading and just, meditating and cooking, like, just you just have to find things.
Mhm.
There have also been times where I've been overseas and there have been a lot of Americans and I've been in a really big city and I'm like, "Oh, we're all just kicking it. We're hanging out. Like this is cool. This is fine." Like I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I don't feel like I'm struggling. So I think it definitely depends. And there's so many factors. Again, like some people like to be in small cities. Some people want to be in big cities. I like to shop. I like to eat. I like to, so if I'm in a big city and I feel like I can go do stuff, like I'm like, oh, I'm cool. Like this is fine. I have an outlet, especially, because sometimes you might have a few bad games in a row. Maybe
Mm.
you're just on a team that's not great. And sometimes you need something outside of basketball to take your mind away from it. So it can be hard, you know, gosh, like we suck this season and I'm playing bad and I got to just go home and I don't have anything to do. Like that's really hard. because I've been there. That's really, really hard. Because then you just like go home and I'm just like, I'm just thinking about like I missed all those shots and who we lost. And so for me it definitely depends. Um I've also, made some of my best friends playing overseas and had some of my greatest experiences and, experienced amazing cultures and seen some of my favorite cities and like, I've had some seasons that I'm like, I don't want to go home. Like I love being over here. So it really just depends. And again, like sometimes you get luckier than other seasons. But it's really, again, just what works for you and what you like and what's important. And that's part of having a good agent that knows what's important to you. And, sometimes people are willing to sacrifice things for money. Also, sometimes people aren't. I'd rather be somewhere where I'm happy instead of, making that extra however much money in my contract. So it's really just it's up to the person. And again, I've had like every experience in the book. So yeah.
I'm very similar in that regards of I don't mind being out and quiet, but I need to be in proximity of the
Yeah.
city. I need to be
Yes.
able to reach it within
Yeah.
at most an
Exactly.
hour. 3,
Exactly.
4 hours, and
Yeah.
I can't do it. Like, it'll be nice
It's
for a
hard.
couple of days. "Oh, it's so quiet over here," just
But 8 months.
relax it, and then
Mm-mm.
yeah, it gets tiring
Mm-mm.
real quick.
Very
With
quick.
that, right, just, wondering, so you mentioned you obviously love your mom and have a close,
Mhm.
tight-knit relationship with your mom. Is there
Mhm.
any with you and your agent, is there any goals of trying to stay stateside within regards of, like, the WNBA? Because I know you've had a couple of stints there.
Yeah.
Is that, like, a still a kind of a goal and a conscious of actually, "You know what? Overseas, I kinda did my thing over there, I'd rather be back at home."
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, what, I think that's like everybody's dream. And that has like always been a dream for me. Being since I was young. I mean, that's always been my goal. And um even going back to, some of the mental health stuff and some of the things that I talked about earlier and just kind of like getting on a different trajectory than I thought that I was on. I think that that's kind of something that, now I've had to just kind of try to get myself back on a path that I thought I was on. And I think that's a huge goal for me. I mean, I really honestly wouldn't feel done with my career until I did that. Like that's just something that I've always wanted to do.
Mhm,
So yeah, and obviously it's really exciting. All of the, the league is expanding now, and there's more opportunities because also the WNBA is just really hard to make. There's not a lot of teams. There's not a lot of roster spots. It's the hardest league to make, period. So it's really just a lot of things aligning, opportunity and the right situation and all of those things. And again, if it were to happen, that would be like a dream come true for me. That's definitely a goal. It's definitely something that I've always talked to my agent about is like, okay, how can we get to this? How can we, even where I go overseas, he usually tries to put me somewhere where the season would be done in time for me to be able to,
mhm.
go to training camp and, have an opportunity. And yeah, so I mean, I know that some things aren't always in the cards for certain people. And if that would be my story, that would be okay. But it's definitely something that I want to do for sure. Yeah.
Well, I wanna say shout out to you, though, for continuing because we see every single year
Hmm.
there are a handful, probably 2 handfuls of really good players
Yeah.
that get cut because it's just not enough spots.
I
The
know.
WNBA is expanding, it's growing.
Yep.
It's gonna be a different conversation we talking about 10 years from now where we won't have that
Absolutely.
situation where we see a first round draft pick is cut the
I
following
know.
season. We
Yep.
won't see that anymore, but right now it's kinda tough because it's still in the growing stage of where
Yeah.
we all know it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. I mean, like you said, 10 years it'll be, even 5 years. I mean, they've already, next season it'll be a new team, the season after 2 new teams. I mean, that's awesome just right there, That's huge. And like you said, it's just hard. There are a lot of really, really talented girls that aren't in the W, but everybody in the W is super talented. I mean, it's just hard and it kind of sucks, but all you can do is just like keep going, and at the end of the day, like you said too, like, I've built a really great career overseas and I do love going overseas, and it's super competitive, and honestly, I always try to encourage more people to watch overseas basketball because there are some super talented players that only play in Europe and they don't play in the W. They choose not to. So it's definitely great competition and it's always a great experience. But playing at home would just be it just hit different. So
For you going overseas, right? What was
Mhm.
your biggest learning curve from playing stateside versus overseas?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much. I think there's a lot on and off the court. I would say on the court, when you go overseas, it's super physical, like super, super physical. And a lot of the time, as Americans, because, typically when we go to a country, we're the more talented players, most of the time. Not always the case, but most of the time. So a lot of the times, like, you won't get calls. Like, I've heard, well,
Sure.
you're too talented, or you're supposed to do this, or you're supposed to do that. And I'm like, well, if she tackled me, she still tackled me. It doesn't matter. But so it's super physical. And I mean, even, like, you look at the W, there's defensive 3 seconds. So there's a lot more space. Um, overseas, like, they could sit everybody in the lane and there's no, it's just a different game. So that's something that I definitely had to adjust to, is like, okay, finish through contact, find ways to get to your shot that's not, necessarily always a blow by, or it's just a much different game. Um and off the court, I mean, again, and everywhere is different, but there have been places where I've gone, and as an American, like, you're just held to a much higher standard than everyone else. Everyone else.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you're missing your family. I don't care if your dog died. I don't care if whatever, we haven't paid you in 2 months. I don't care if your Wi-Fi is not working. You better come to everything. You better come to practice. You better do all of this. You better be the leading scorer. You better da 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 da. And so it's, again, and that's part of the mental health and finding ways to just steady yourself and kind of get through things, because they don't care. There's a lot of times where they just are like, I'm gonna go home to my family and I'm gonna be good, but but you better be okay for practice tomorrow and you better play good in the game. So it's just a huge adjustment in that way, both on and off the court.
Yeah, my high school teammate, he was telling me a story that when he got
Mhm.
overseas, he got off the plane and there was two coaches there waiting for him already. Said, "Where you like
Yeah.
the ball at? Where do you want it at?" And it was a game like an hour later, and he was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he dropped maybe 15 with our first game straight off the plane. Somebody else
Mhm.
had more points than him. No,
And they were probably
you're
mad.
supposed
Yeah.
you're American. You're supposed to lead every single game. What?
Yeah. Yep.
What?
Yep.
So
It's crazy.
definitely, I think I always like to have these conversations with people that play overseas for
Mhm.
those that watch and listen to understand, like, it's not cupcakes and rainbows just to go
No,
overseas. Like, it's
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 not.
it's not sweet. It's
It's not. Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, like, it is a blessing and there are amazing things, and like I said, like, I've met so many other Americans that I would have never met, and I've become close with them. I've met so many Europeans that, have become great friends to me, experiencing all these cultures. I mean, you are getting paid to play basketball. That's an amazing thing. Like, I don't want to say that,
Yeah.
but it's hard. It's really hard. And it's like you said, it's not peaches and cream, rainbows and cupcakes. Like, there's a lot of times where you're like, okay, I'm ready to go home. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But that's just part of the journey. Like, um, and this is great, and your platform is great, and asking these questions is amazing because, there's a lot of times where people who just don't know, and they're asking questions, and they maybe make assumptions, and again, it's harmless, but will assume that I'm like living this great amazing lifestyle and this must be great for you, like, I don't know what you
Yes.
could ever complain about. And I'm like, okay. So it's nice to be able to share these experiences and share these stories and let people know that this is a job, and there's a lot of things that it might not be a 9 to 5, somebody's normal desk job, but it is a job, and there's things about it that's really hard and tough to deal with. And like we talked about, like, you know athletes go through a lot, and you go through a lot in a completely new country. People don't speak your language at all, can't communicate. I mean, honestly, there's times I go overseas and I'm like, I wouldn't even know what their 911 is. I wouldn't even know how to, like, if there was a
God,
real emergency.
emergency.
Like,
Yup.
yeah. So it's like, this is real. It's real.
Yeah, I
So,
try to stress to people, because I had another player on in China, which we know
mhm.
is a very, for lack of better words, like kind of not the safest place
Yeah.
to have an argument, to be upset
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
hey, I've been playing for 2 months and I didn't get a check.
Yeah.
You
Culture shock.
completely different. Like the people that just
Mhm.
make, like you said, make it like, oh, you overseas, you living a life, you must be living in a mansion. The thing is, if you at your regular 9 to 5, if your employer decided
Yeah.
not to pay you for 2 months,
Yep. It's a
it's
problem.
different over here. We could figure something out and you probably get your
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Overseas life is too many players that tell stories that
Yeah.
I didn't get paid the whole season.
Exactly. And it's really sad, and I think that's another thing that more people are starting to speak up about, but there's just got to be more protection for players overseas. I mean, it's kind of like a rock and a hard place. Like, you know, I know I luckily haven't been in any situations where it's been like a whole season or multiple months, and I've been on teams where maybe they're a month late. Like, it sucks, but I get my money. But I've had friends where they haven't gotten paid an entire season, or it's been a really long time, and maybe they're losing and they're not getting paid because they're losing, or they just promised them money that they didn't have. And it can be really hard because at the end of the day, we're always kind of judged on our last performance. So
Mhm.
sometimes, I've signed this contract, I'm not getting paid, I don't want to be here. This sucks. I'd rather just go home. But I need film. I need to still show what I can do to get the next job. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of like, well, I
Catch
kind of just
22.
have to stay. Exactly. I just have to kind of stay and thug it out and just keep going, and hopefully get picked up somewhere else. I mean, it sucks. And also a team might not pay you, but if you're under contract, they technically don't have to release you, so you maybe can't even go somewhere else. It's just so many scenarios that, again, like you said, catch 22, and you just are stuck. And unfortunately, even trying to sue a team, like, takes a long time, and you have to pay a lot of money for a lawyer, and you end up paying probably just as much money to try to fight it than what you were going to receive. So it's just a can be a really bad situation. And like I said, athletes need way more protection overseas. We need a union, we need something. And yeah, we just need FIBA to do a little bit more sometimes. So hopefully that also changes.
Mhm.
Um, because yeah, there's a lot of really talented people that go overseas and kind of get screwed over, and it just sucks.
All of that you just mentioned, and we've kind of already talked about it and alluded to it,
Mhm.
can be a very taxing toll on your mental health.
Yeah.
For you being on the pro level, playing at the
Mhm.
collegiate level, at this point, do you feel that now mental health is being taken more serious, or is it still some room for growth? And like, if there is, in your opinion, what would you change to make it more valuable
Mhm.
to these colleges and to these pro teams?
Yeah. You know what? I think stateside is being taken a lot more serious. I think in college it's taking a lot more serious. I think at the pro level they're starting to take it a lot more serious, like, W and in the NBA. At least people are starting to speak up a little bit more about it. I know there's still, every once in a while you'll hear of some stories that, maybe a staff isn't handling a situation correctly or whatever, but it's at least not as taboo as it used to be, at least like when I was high school and college. But I would say, like, again, like kind of what we've been talking about, like overseas is not even a thing. Don't even talk about it. Don't even try to don't even try to use that. Nope, not gonna work. So again, and that's part of, having more protections. It's also, some things are just kind of cultural, um,
Mhm.
which is hard. Some places just deal with things differently and they don't accept certain things and they do, which sucks. But I would say at least stateside, it seems to be getting a lot better. Um, at least I think people have a little bit more freedom. I mean, you know, I think people just have more platforms as well.
Mhm.
College athletes, especially with all the NIL and social media, and people just have more of a platform to speak on things, and to just be taken a little bit more serious, which is nice and that's good. It's important, to be able to speak on your situation, speak on how you feel, and um, go about it in that way, and be taken serious by your coaching staff, your school, your program, um, all of those things. I would say, but yeah, like being overseas, you got to figure out what works for you because you're not going to get a lot of help. You're not going to get a lot of help.
That's very unfortunate. Like you said, it's very culturally based.
Yes.
It's things that you would think that as a human race that we would kind of be all on the same page, but that's
Yeah.
unfortunately obviously
Yeah.
not the case.
Well,
For you,
exactly.
right? We know that basketball is what you do, and
Hmm.
you've been doing it for years, but it's
Yeah.
not who you are. Who is Taya off the court outside of basketball? Not practice, not watching film,
Yeah.
not rehabbing, outside of basketball.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I love that you said that because I think a lot of players, and I know I struggled with this. I have struggled, and I know a lot of people struggle to like know who they are outside of basketball. Yes. I mean, especially like I've been playing basketball since I was 5. So that's my entire life, and so I think when I had my first knee injury, even I had a fairly minor injury in college, but I had to sit out. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I do. I don't know what I am outside of this. And even now, as I'm getting older in my career, I was like, so what am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna be outside of this? And that's a really important thing to establish early on, that, like you said, that basketball is something that you do, but it's not who you are. Um, but for me, I just love spending time with my family. Like if I'm not playing basketball, if I'm not doing anything um related to basketball, like I just love spending time with my family. I love watching shows. I love watching movies. Like I know that's not you know, frying your brain. I know people say that, but I I love watching TV shows. I love watching movies. I did film and television studies in college, so I,
Yes.
like to think that I like look at things in a more like
Definitely asking you
you
about it
know
later.
I like to think I'm a connoisseur, but and I mean, gosh, I just really love to spend with my friends, my family members. Just I think that life is really short and you should just always spend time with the people that you love. So there's not really anything like crazy different that I like to do. I just really like to, have a good time with the people that make me feel good. And hopefully like do the same for others and um just enjoy my time. I do like to shop. I really like to eat, but simple stuff, not like I don't like rock climb or anything.
And I saw that you studied at Notre Dame, and
Mhm,
I was like, oh yeah, I gotta ask about that because I'm the
mhm.
same way. I love watching movies. I
Yeah.
love watching TV shows. I know somebody that I forget her exact role, but she works in movies and she worked on like the
Oh,
most
that's so
recent
cool.
film was If. She worked on that in some capacity. I forgot what
That's so
capacity
cool.
exactly, right? So anytime I
Yeah.
see her on site, yes, what do you think about this movie? What do you think about this
I
TV
know,
show?
I love
What
that.
do you think about this? Because
I know.
I realized I probably should have actually majored in that because I actually love it so much.
Yeah, yeah.
So I love when I get to be able to talk to people that actually studied it. Like, oh yeah,
I
you're different. You
know.
see it in a different eye.
I know.
For the regular
That's so
person, me, if I say this is good and you say it's good too,
yeah, there you
I feel
go. Yeah, you like, "Okay, I got a
oh
little
yeah, y'all gotta talk to me differently. So
production eye." Exactly.
when I suggest this movie, it's coming from an
Ex
educated place. So
exactly, that's so funny.
most
That's so funny.
definitely. So within this interview, for those that by any chance it went over your dome, by any chance you didn't have your earpods in correctly, there's been a lot of gems and wisdom dropped in this episode that is advice given from you. But
Mhm.
for you, what's the best piece of advice that somebody gave to you?
You know what? That is so hard. That's really, really hard. I would say honestly, and I don't know if I could even say like that this is like one piece of advice, but I will say when I was transferring from Notre Dame and I was I don't know at the point that, I started working with this person and training with this person that I had actually decided that I was going to Michigan State. I think I was just kind of, I was dealing with an injury, I was dealing with a lot mentally, and honestly wasn't sure if I would even like be able to play again. Was kind of like maybe I'm done. I don't know. And I started working with a trainer. His name is Derek Grant. You might know him as DG
Mhm.
now. He's does a lot of like mindset coaching and a lot of videos on IG. Um, but he like just really helped me get to a mental space of like y- what do you really want to do? Like, what do you want? What do you want to get out of this? Like, stop being who you think that somebody else wants you to be.
Mm.
Like, don't, you know, because at that point I had been putting so much pressure on myself to live up to these expectations that I felt like so many people had for me and to be this like image of somebody that, you know, my coaches and my friends and boosters and my family had of me. And he was like, if you don't want to play basketball anymore, don't play basketball anymore. But if you do, then let's do it for you. Like your
Mm.
motivation needs to be yours alone, not somebody else's, not, this and that. And that was what like really made me start to look at basketball and just life in a completely different light. And I think that's important for everybody. You can't whether it's basketball, whether it's painting or music or whatever, like if you're going to do something, you have to fully commit to it because you love it and you want to do it and you're doing it for you. And again, I think there's a lot of moments in my basketball career where my motivations were like, I really need to do this because so and so wants me to, or so and so
Mm.
expects me to do this, not because I just straight up felt like this is what I want to do and I love this so much and I got to do it. And so he really helped me to get to a place of like sitting down with myself and do you love this for you? And if so, let's move forward on that note. So, um, yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of it. It was like a, a real life moment for me for sure. And I think I still struggle with that. I've always kind of been a little bit of a people pleaser.
Mhm.
But I think that it's just so important to find your own motivation for yourself. Like you can't do anything for somebody else's approval because you're never going to feel good about yourself. Like you have to feel good about you at the end of the day and why you're doing what you're doing. So, yeah, maybe so and so is happy, but if I get in my bed at night and I'm like, "Ugh," then then that's not a good feeling. Not a good
Most
feeling at all.
definitely. It's so important to keep yourself in mind in the process of whatever you're doing in life
Yeah.
because, like you said, everybody else could be happy with you, but are you happy with you? Are you happy
Yeah.
with the decision that you made? Because honestly, before anybody else comes, and we've all heard this plenty of times before, you
Mhm.
can't really give your best to anybody else in any capacity until you love and take care of yourself,
Yeah.
and it's easier said than done.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
been I've been guilty of that. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do this because I think my mom will like it if I did this.
Yep.
You put yourself in that position and then you end up unhappy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes the
You
person
totally
that you're
fake
doing it for has no clue of anything
Yes.
of why you're doing it.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
I was doing it for you.
Exactly.
I
And
wasn't
they're
thinking about
like,
it.
"Girl." I've had so many times where I've been like, "Well, I thought you wanted me to do this." We're like, "We don't care." Well, okay. Let's figure it out then. But yeah, that's so true and that's so important and um like you said, like you can and I learned that the hard way. Like you can only fake it for so long and you can get by. I got by for a long time doing it that way and was successful for a little bit doing it that way. And then eventually you just get to the point where, like you said, like I'm not feeling good about this anymore. So it's not working anymore. And now I'm not getting by. I'm not doing very well with it. And my motivations are bad. So it's all bad. you know. So
Yeah, I heard Kevin on stage talk about that when he
mhm.
had his children and whatnot.
Mhm.
He sat his children down and sat his wife down and said, I gotta really go after this dream for me.
Yep.
I love y'all. I appreciate
Yeah.
y'all. I'ma still be there, but I wouldn't be able to rest if I didn't try to pursue this. And if it don't work
Exactly.
out, it don't work out. But I liked hearing that of the honesty of being because people sometimes will make it taboo to say that I'm doing this for me
Yeah.
because I want to chase this dream.
Yeah.
To have that
Absolutely.
honest conversation, I think is very important and should happen more often. It shouldn't be a taboo thing or you
Yep.
may felt guilty because I do want to pursue basketball. I want to pursue this dream.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think sometimes, most people want to be selfless and they want to, and that's another thing that you're always taught is to, you know, put people first and the people that you love, and do things for the people that you love. And I think that sometimes it can be hard, and it's a fine line between like, how can I still hold you in such high regard and love you and want to do all of these things for you, but like, yeah, I gotta pursue this as well. But sometimes when you're pursuing something that you really love, that comes back around to the people that you love and becomes something positive for everybody.
Mhm.
So I think that that's just important. That's another thing that I had to learn, like, me having these backwards motivations for certain things that I was doing ended up not only hurting me, but hurting people that I loved. And so I was like, I thought that I was doing all of these things for you, and it really ended up, we all are down bad right now. Like, so I should have just been doing it the right way for me in the first place. And then certain experiences, I mean, I know certain experiences that I had wouldn't have been the way that they were if I was doing things differently. Um, so yeah, so like you said, it can be hard to, you know, feel like, man, am I putting myself over these people that I love? Like, can I really say that I love you if I'm, kind of pushing you back? But um, you just have to find that, like, that right balance, and also know that the people that really love you want you to do that. They want you to pursue the things that you need to in the way that you need um, to be happy. And then, you being happy makes the people that you love happy, and then everybody's happy. So,
1000%. God gave you these ideas and these dreams
yeah,
and these goals, not to just sit there.
yeah,
Go ahead and
exactly,
pursue it. Transition to
exactly.
our fourth quarter segment, which is kind
Okay.
of more of the fun segment.
Yeah.
You mentioned eating, you mentioned shopping, you mentioned movies.
Yes.
I like to have, no matter who the guest is, whether it's a high schooler, whether it's
Mhm.
collegiate, D1, D2, D3, overseas,
Mhm.
I am a foodie. I love
I
to eat.
know.
I love to cook.
Me too.
Part of my TV
Me
shows that I
too.
watch often in rotation is some type of Food Network cooking shows,
I
diners,
know,
drive-ins, and dives.
same, grocery games. I love watching
Yes,
grocery games.
yes. I have
Oh,
legit a note in my phone of places all over the country of like, oh yeah, this
I
spot,
know, I know.
what
Like,
to get
ooh.
when I get there.
Mhm.
For
Mhm.
you, what's one thing that you could eat and not get tired of?
Um, okay, so that's really hard because I'm also a foodie, and I feel like I love to eat, but I love Mexican food. I feel like I could eat Mexican food like every day.
Can't
I
go wrong
love
with that.
tacos. I love queso. I just love Mexican food. Um, yeah, that was a hard one. That was a hard one. I had to think about that, but I would say Mexican food.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that me and my wife never get tired of. And we
Yeah.
found this spot in Jersey. We was like, yeah, so anytime we want Mexican, we have to go here. We're not going to play
Yeah.
around and try these new spots. Like,
Exactly.
we're going to go
Exactly.
here. We
Yep.
know this is good. Everything here is
Once you
good.
find that spot, let's not even mess around. Let's get right to it.
Definitely. If you could, right? So you like movies and TV shows. If you could give me
Yeah.
your favorite 5 movies and favorite 5 TV shows,
Oh
I
god.
would be I would be greatly appreciative of that.
Okay, I actually wrote this down, so let me go in my notes. Okay, so the movies is gonna be really hard for me, I'm not gonna lie. But I
Okay.
wrote down my TV shows because I feel like I watch so many that it's really hard for me to, like, sometimes when you're on the spot, it's like I can't even remember. But okay, so TV shows. And this is in no order.
Okay.
Um Watchmen, which
Mhm.
it was only one season of that, but I loved that show. That was a great show. Sons of Anarchy. I would say Sons of Anarchy is like my favorite show. That's a pretty good show. Lovecraft Country. That was only one season of that, but that was a really great show.
Mhm.
Scandal and Game of Thrones. And I
That's a
put Stranger Things and Breaking Bad as like my honorable mention.
No, that's a solid list right there.
So it's kind of all over the place, but um movies, I like really I like kind of like twisted movies,
Mhm.
like thrillers and like, you know, make you feel kind of but I don't know. I like that. Like, it's got to have something to it, and like a twist or something that I'm not expecting. I don't. I will watch a rom com. I'll watch you know a funny movie. I don't. That's not like what I'm gonna go to. Like, I
Mhm.
want something that's like, you know, I would say I don't know if I can give you five, but my favorite movie or one of my favorite movies of all time is Seven. Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, like
Yes.
that type of movie. So that's the vibe. That's my vibe. You can already tell that's my vibe. So
Funny enough, I was literally looking at it yesterday. I was going down a list of stuff to watch, and I'm
yeah.
more of a TV show person too. I just
Okay.
realized that yesterday. I'm like, I see it's a
Yeah.
list of movies. I don't really
Yeah.
want to watch that. Give me a nice series that I could
I
watch,
know. I know.
binge watch it possibly. And like you said, when it comes to the movies or TV shows, it's stuff that's there, right? Unless it's in the season, the holiday, I'm with my kids, or
I
it's kind of
know.
a friendly, animated, fun movie like that. I want some type of suspense. I want some type of,
Yes.
I don't know what's
Yeah.
coming. I need a great storyline, a little bit of
Yeah.
action here and there, but give me,
Yeah.
oh, what, why?
Yes.
Oh,
What is going on? Yeah. What's happening?
like for example,
Yeah.
like Gone Girl. That,
That there you go. There's a good one. There you go. That's a great
oh,
movie.
oh, girl, you,
That's a great
oh,
movie.
okay.
That's a great
You
movie.
kind of tweak it, but I like the genius that you did
Yeah,
behind this. Like you really could have got away with that
she went crazy. She went crazy. That's a great movie. That I would put that on the list too. That's a great movie. I love
for
that
you.
movie.
Yes.
Mhm.
So we mentioned Busta Rhymes earlier. Who's in your musical rotation
This is a
for
hard one too.
practices and game day?
This is a hard one too. Okay, so for me, I do listen to I listen to a lot of like rap and hip hop, and
Mhm,
but I don't necessarily have like a pump up like playlist or something that
mhm,
I listen to before games. I honestly, so my like go-to playlist that I listen to 8 out of 10 times is just like a nice R&B playlist. And honestly, I found for me that when I'm like listening to like Future before a game or something like that, then I'm like too amped up. So I like to just, some R&B. That's like usually what I just listen to. Going to practice, going to a game. Um Now I do love Future. I do listen to a lot of Future. Um and I feel like bad to say this now, but I listen to a lot of Drake. So I know he's like
You don't
he
gotta feel bad for that.
I
You don't have to
know
feel
he just
bad for
has a
that.
lot of hits. He has a lot of hits. But I feel like he's kind of lame now.
It's funny you mentioned that. So in our group chat, right? Our daily weekly episode that we do. So
Yeah.
I do all the interviews. I love doing
Uh-huh.
this.
Yeah.
So then it's a weekly episode I have with my bros. So
Yeah.
my
Uh-huh.
co-host, we was all sending in the chat
Yeah.
our list of the Apple replay.
Uh-huh.
So it was hilarious. It's two of them on the show, right? That was going back and forth, arguing with each other about
Uh-huh.
the Kendrick, the
Of
Drake
course.
situation.
Of
One
course.
was on Kendrick's side, one was on Drake's side.
Mhm.
The Kendrick person, he sent his Apple replay in, and the top artist was Drake. So,
See? But you know what? And I won't lie, because you sent me that list of questions and I went and I looked at my replay yesterday and my top person was Drake. And I was like, but again, he has hits that span a long period. So I feel like, some of the recent stuff I've kind of been like, I won't listen to that. But like, he has stuff from like 5, 10 years ago that I still listen to. And I'm like, I can't not listen to that. I'm sorry.
funny
I can't.
enough, so the person that was Team Drake, his most
Hmm.
played album this year was the Take Care album. To your
Okay.
point,
See?
to
Exactly.
your point of that. But the Kendrick person,
Exactly.
it was hilarious to see the duality. The number
Yes.
one person played was Drake. The number one
Hmm.
song played was Not Like Us.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. There you go.
So I don't think you in the wrong spot. This is probably all
I
of
know.
everybody that loves the hip hop genre.
Exactly.
It's you're Drake, Kendrick, or you're in between. Like I like both.
I like both too. I would say just like I've actually always really liked Kendrick. I think that he has like overall more substance.
Mhm.
Um, he obviously has some bangers and then he has some like deeper stuff, which for me I love and appreciate, but also that's just like that's a time and a place for me.
Yes.
Again, there's a lot of Drake music that I'm like, I can just put that on and I'm doing anything and it's just playing in the background. And it's you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I really like both. Do I feel like Kendrick won? Yes. Am I still gonna listen to Drake? Yes.
Yes.
It didn't make me. But I
Pretty.
don't know. And then they came out with the whole thing about he's like suing the label or whatever
Yeah,
over that.
it's a
And I'm
lot.
like, you're not helping. You're not making it any better.
It's definitely a lot with that whole situation. To
Yeah, it's
the
crazy.
beginning of your point too, I'm the same way. I know Russell Westbrook's the same way
Mhm.
because I am so and players of the sort are passionate once the game starts. I
Yep.
can't. No, I need smooth jazz. I need an
Yeah.
instrumental. I got to listen to
Yeah.
lo-fi, hip hop, something
Yeah.
because
Chill.
I don't need anything to pump
Yeah.
me up.
I'm
Once
gonna
the
be
game
amped up.
starts, I'm hyped. I'm right. Like you said earlier, it's a
Exactly.
blessing to be able to play this game. Whether
Mhm.
you, I mean, getting paid, of course, and then if you just love the
Yeah.
game, able to literally, you're able to still move and have activity of your
Yes.
limbs. You hyped. I'm on the.
Exactly.
I don't need nothing that's gonna have me hyped before the game because now you on 20.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. I
So
agree. That
we on
was
the
something yeah, that was something for me, like, I I have always really struggled, honestly, with performance anxiety and, like, feeling like my mind is like, "You gotta do this, you gotta do that," and so that was part of it for me. Like, I need to be able to just, like, flow through everything. Okay, if I have a bad play, okay, like so that's part of getting my mind into like a calm, nice place is like the calm, nice music. So then once I get onto the floor, I'm like, okay, we're thinking through this, we're chill, we're letting things come and go. It's not like, you know, first place suck, the whole game's gonna suck. I'm going crazy. Like, because I've definitely been there. Like, if I don't do something really good in the first 30 seconds, then I'm like, God, like this is gonna be horrible. And that was just something I had to figure out was like music played a part in that for me, or in turn just helped me to cool out, you know. So yeah, I mean, I think that again, it's different for everybody. Like some people need to be like to get themselves going. I've never felt that way. I've always felt like, you're good, sis. Let's calm down a little bit.
yeah, it's literally it's been once in a blue moon. But to your point of like we talk about of not knowing these things, growing up
Mhm.
playing basketball.
Yeah.
When
Yep.
I was in high school, I just thought it was a thing because literally the whole playlist that they played over the
Oh,
loudspeaker
exactly.
was Jersey Club, the No Ceilings
Yeah.
mixtape, and everybody is.
No ceilings
And I'm
mixtape.
looking
Yes,
like,
exactly.
wait,
Yeah.
I guess this is the norm. This is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yep.
And I found out later, like, nah, I don't need that.
Mm-mm.
So it was like by my senior, like, yo, could y'all mix in, put a little side on that, little something like that,
Exactly.
or a little
Exactly.
Tiana Taylor, put a little
I
Mary J,
know.
little
Yeah.
something like that
See?
to mix
Exactly.
it in, and I'm good.
Yes.
I don't need
Exactly.
I don't need that, but
Yeah.
that's how it
Agreed.
is. We know better now.
I know. Thank
For
God. But
you,
yeah.
again, we thank you for hopping on, taking time out of your
Yeah.
schedule.
Of course.
Last question of this episode here that we
Mhm.
have.
Okay.
In your storied collegiate career, your
Mhm.
professional career, if you could list some of your favorite teammates. Now, I'm not going to put a number on it. If
Yeah.
you got 20 teammates you want to name because you don't want to leave
Oh
nobody
my
out, You
I
can
know
do
that's
so,
really hard. That's
but
really hard.
just throwing it out there. Some of your favorite
Um,
teammates.
oh my gosh, some of my favorite teammates. Okay, well, I will say I was lucky enough. So 3 seasons ago now, playing overseas, um, playing in Turkey, I played with Dana Evans, who she plays for the Chicago Sky. She is like somebody that I had always known
Mhm.
previous to that. And we had always been cool, but not like super cool and didn't really know each other super well. But um signed to play on the same team together overseas and like became best friends. She's literally my absolute best friend in the world and will be forever. So I would say like that was amazing. That was an amazing experience to like become so close with somebody so quickly and then, be able to play with them. And we loved playing with each other and uh, just like really clicked on the court. And then again, that was like somebody that really helped me. Whether we had a really good game or whether we had a bad game, we would be like, okay, girl, let's go eat, or like, let's go shopping. Let's go, like, let's find something
Mhm.
just to like get away from this or to celebrate this. And so that was really nice. And so she's like my all-time favorite teammate, like my all-time favorite person. Um, and I would say last season was really cool because so I actually, when I went to Notre Dame, Lindsay Allen was in my class. She was in my recruiting class and we played together at Notre Dame. And she was, she was my point guard. We were super close in college and, we had a lot of success at Notre Dame. And then obviously I transferred away and, last season playing in Turkey, we actually got to play together again, which was really cool to like, kind of start not really start your career, but college is kind of the start of
Mhm.
um in a way of like of your career. Like you're on this different platform and this different space. So to like, kind of start with her and then for us to kind of move away from each other and then come back and play
Mhm.
as teammates. It was like that was a really cool experience and um I think the world for her. She also plays for the Sky as well. She plays for the Chicago Sky. Um but yeah, she's like both of them, those two. So those were Dana was my point guard the season before and then Lindsay was my point guard the next year and like those are two of the most talented women playing basketball in the W and in Europe. So I'm like huge fans of both of them on the court and as people. So I would say, I mean, I've had so many teammates and like I am that person even as a professional. Like I always want to build relationships with my teammates and be close with my teammates. I've never been that person that's like this is a job. I'm just here for my 2 hours and I'll see y'all later. Like I've never been that person. So I always try to get really, really close with my teammates and it just helps. So, I mean, I've had so many teammates that I love, but I was just keep it at those two.
I figured because I saw some legendary picks. I've seen, I think it was one of your first couple threads. You was like, I'll go to war for Dana. I figured she
Yeah.
was gonna come up. She was
Yeah.
gonna come up as one of the options.
Yeah, that's my girl. We like we're definitely very ride or die for each other. So she's like, yeah. And again, it's just she's somebody outside of basketball. That's my person, like my best friend. But it just, it's nice to have that connection with somebody. And then, like, we had a great season together and we loved playing together. And we have the same interests and the same goals as far as, loving basketball and wanting to do all of these amazing things. And it's really nice to have somebody like that, that so many things on and off the court just align. Um, because, then you can motivate each other and
Mhm.
when she's going through something I get it and I can help her. When I'm going through something she gets it and she always helps me through everything. So yeah, that's like the beautiful thing about sports is you can connect with people on a on a different level and find people that maybe you wouldn't necessarily have found them or been close with them outside of your sport. So
Yeah. my wife knows majority of my friends. Oh, how you know this person?
Yeah.
Basketball,
Basketball,
basketball.
exactly.
Walking through a random place in the mall. How you know that person?
Basketball,
Basketball.
exactly,
That's
that's everybody. That's everybody,
that
yeah.
majority of every friendship
I
relationship I have
know.
is related
Yes,
to basketball. But
same, same.
there you have it. That wraps up this episode. Y'all know the vibes here on the Bench Mob ENT podcast. If you stay ready, you don't gotta get ready. Bench
Period.
Mob, we out. Peace.
Thank you.
So